Welcome to Home Care, Doors Open, where we discuss licensing, operations, and scaling your home care business. Whether you're just opening your doors or looking to unlock new doors to growth and success, this podcast is for you. Let's begin.
All right, hello and welcome. This is Lucas Carroll from the Business of Senior Care, and we're back with another episode of our podcast, Home Care, Doors Open. I'm super excited today. We have a very special guest, Julio Barea, who is the VP of Sales with Ally CareTime. Julio, welcome aboard.
Good afternoon, Lucas. How are you today? Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for taking your time to come on and share your knowledge and expertise with our client base. For our podcast, just as we frame up here, we have people who tune in that are new to the home care space. They might be established owners as well, but they are looking for guidance and wisdom and sort of a background in home care when it comes to different technologies, different options, different experiences to start, grow, and establish a foundational home care agency in their city. So I think it's perfect timing to have you on board. To get started here, would you mind just sharing with our audience a little bit about your background and experience in home care, your extensive experience, and for our audience?
Yeah, good afternoon. So it's interesting. I got into this career a little later in life. Through my 30s and 40s, I had been working in financial services and ERP, essentially large manufacturing financial services, brokerages, financial products, investment banking, and things like that. And it was a fantastic career and it was quite financially lucrative. Somewhere around 12 to 13 years ago, I had a grandmother and she got sick. She passed away a couple of years ago at 96, but during that search and the work and trying to find home care for her, I discovered this business of home care and Medicare and home health. And so as we provided care, I'm a very naturally curious person. And of course, I started poking my nose into how things were run, where caregivers came from, how scheduling happened. I asked about what kind of software they use. And I was fascinated by the entire business. And as I was watching the care that was provided by to my grandmother, I thought, what a wonderful business. It looked like it was a business that they're really working hard to care for people. And it got me very curious. I was at a phase in my career where I thought to myself, I'm making good money, but I don't feel like I'm giving back to anything. And so that opened my eyes. And so over a couple of years, I researched, and it took about 2 or 3 years. But about 10 years ago, I was able to go to work for a company called Brightree as a home health software executive. It was a fantastic experience, great company. I met some fantastic people, introduced me to the business. And so I got to know home health agencies. I got to know the Medicare space. I got to know the DME and the hospice space. And as I was there, I was introduced to private duty Medicaid and the non-skilled sector. And it's interesting, I kept going down in at the time was called the type of services provided, right? You're starting up here, then you're doing home health and skilled nursing, and now you're down here. And it felt to me that down here was an area that needed help. And it was an area at the time that wasn't highly focused on by people who wanted to go out and really penetrate that industry. And so as I started jumping into it, I had an opportunity at a company called ClearCare, which eventually was acquired by WellSky. And then there, about 7 years ago, I got really deep into the Medicaid and the non-skilled space. And I'm fascinated by it. I'm passionate about the business. It was an area where I felt that I could do work and make money and have a career, but I was doing something that universally was helping people who were doing good for other people. And it was a really important point in my life for me to align my personal values with the work that I did. Because I'll be honest, there's easier ways to make money than in the home health and the home care business. And this one was one that I really enjoyed. And 10 years later, I'm still enjoying it, and I'm growing our business, and I'm meeting more people every day. I've been blessed with the ability to start speaking. I've somehow magically become some sort of quote-unquote Medicaid expert to some people, and so I've been talking about that, and which blows my mind sometimes. I get on there, and people say, hey, we'd love you to come speak, and I'm like, me? Not really something I thought 5 years ago. because I didn't study this, it's not something that I went to school for. It just happened. And over years, I've become a bit of an expert in certain areas. And that's how I got here. And doing this podcast with you is just another step in hoping to get the word out, and not only for my company, but in what I'm passionate about. It was making sure that we have a strong, effective, and funded elderly and disabled healthcare system for the folks out there that need it.
Perfect, Dad. Thanks for teeing that up, and good to know the background. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about Ally CareTime, and then where I want to go with that is back to the Medicaid piece, and in terms of your guys' area of expertise for the Medicaid and the billing component. But could you tell our audience a little bit about Ally CareTime?
Sure. So Ally CareTime are two software companies that we run under the same umbrella. They're both in the same tech stack. The difference between them is that one, CareTime, is a traditional home care platform that does onboarding, scheduling, electronic visit verification in 37 states, with a particular focus and emphasis on Medicaid billing. My opinion, we do Medicaid billing better than anybody else when it comes to the ability to process claims easily, when it comes to the ability to process claims in multiple different scenarios. Because as you know, being a credentialing expert, every state is different. Every state has different payers. Every state has different service codes. Every state has different ways of tracking and measuring electronic visit verification, whether it's the software that you use or the aggregator that you connect to, and then how do those claims flow. And so there's some features in our program that make it particularly good at managing that, especially in a multi-state or a multi-payer environment. And so that's what CareTime focuses on, and we've been very successful. I would say 60% of our business is in the Medicaid space, and I would stand by the fact, after having worked for some other programs, that CareTime today, when it comes to Medicaid billing and EVV, is likely one of the best, if not the best, in the market today. The second product that we have is Ally, which is also a registry software. It does some of the same things: electronic visit verification, onboarding, scheduling, caregiver management, communications, billing, claims, and things like that. But it focuses on home care registries, which are agencies that provide care in the home, but they use independent contractors instead of W-2 employees. So by definition, they're not really considered agencies. They're more like referral services. So there's some nuances and some differences in how those need to be structured and in how they do business in order to reinforce the fact that they are using independent contractors and not employees. The risk in that business, as opposed to the Medicaid agency business, where compliance is your risk, and maybe I should back up for a second, but generally speaking, there's different risks in which area you're operating on. So in the Medicaid, Medicare, home care space, your compliance risk is can you pass an audit? Are you following the rules that you need to do? Are you doing the documentation that you need to? Do you have and do you maintain the certification and credentials that you have in order to operate in that business? In the registry space, the danger is in you possibly being audited and having chosen to misclassify your employees, where they should have been employees, but they're independent contractors. And so that risk is Department of Labor audit, workman's comp audits, the IRS audits, overtime, and compliance audits around overtime and minimum wage, which some of those are mitigated with some of the most recent rule changes by the current administration around the companionship exemption. But generally speaking, I could go on and on this one, but generally speaking, that's the differences. One is for agencies and one is for registries or referral services.
Got it. That's helpful. For home care agencies that are thinking about third-party payers like Medicaid, what are some of the things that you would say in terms of how good of a payer source it is, the compliance risks, the ability to get paid with claims, adding that as an overall, an additional payer source for your business?
That's a big question. A very big question. I actually speak for hours about that one at times. So I'm going to preface this by saying that I am passionate about agencies doing Medicaid. I think that the market is underserved. I think that more agencies should do Medicaid. There are some markets that are maybe saturated with Medicaid agencies, but generally speaking, there are many, many areas of the country that the number of Medicaid eligible clients in the area is more than the existing number of agencies can handle or are willing to handle or are willing to grow to. So I'm an advocate for it. I'm also an advocate for the multi-payer model, right? I don't believe you should have all your eggs in one basket. And that is a really big point when I talk to agencies and say, look, if you're doing private pay today, you're doing long-term care insurance, why don't you do VA, right? If it's open in your state or your area, right? This is what you do for a living, Lucas, right? Or why don't you pick up Medicaid? And so, because that way you have multiple different payer sources, and as market and economic conditions change, sometimes private pay is better, long-term care insurance, which is in and out, can go up or down. Government pay, its challenges are really in reimbursement rates and paperwork. On the flip side, it's very steady work, right? You are subject to changes by the state or by the federal government in what kind of funding you get for those programs, or whether or not states need to change those fundings. But generally speaking, with Medicaid and government sources, it's very steady income, albeit low reimbursement unless it's VA, which the reimbursement is pretty good if you can get into it, versus private pay and long-term care. So I think, to answer your questions, I unequivocally recommend for agencies to do Medicaid. Here's the challenge, right? From a business perspective, the reality of starting a home care business isn't just about that passion for helping seniors. It's about setting the right foundation. And if you don't get the licenses, the compliance, the workflows right from day one, the foundation that you build your house on is going to have cracks in it. So to answer your question, I unequivocally recommend Medicaid, but I don't recommend Medicaid unless you're willing to do it well, which means being operationally focused, efficiency focused, detail focused, among other things, and we can get into that later. But generally speaking, I will say it's always a great idea to look at Medicaid as an option for your business, but please balance it out with your ability to manage cash flow, how well do you run operations, and what other payers do you have in your mix.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with a tech platform like CareTime, and I'll let you speak to that part of it, is that the scary factor. Like if you haven't waded into Medicaid yet as an agency, how can like a tech platform, how can that leverage your reducing your anxiety of like, oh, there's compliance and there's claims billing and there's claims rejection and there's all the documentation. How can it help you as an agency to get into a Medicaid as a payer?
That's a fantastic question. The government payer sources, above all things, it's a software solution situation, right? There are still agencies out there that are in spreadsheets. I see it not every day like I used to, but I still run into them every now and then. They might have an electronic visit verification product, and then they're doing things, some things on spreadsheets. But generally speaking, here's what a software is going to do for you and why. In the Medicaid or the government payer space, I'll use that to define Medicaid, VA, and you could extend that out to Medicare, although it's a different space. But particularly in Medicaid, efficiency is very, very, very important. And why is it important? It's just as important as compliance. You need a software that is designed to do things in a way that naturally keep you compliant because of the design of the software. So the Medicaid space and government payer programs in today's age start with electronic visit verification. So you want to make sure that you have a program that has a solid electronic visit verification mobile app that works on all devices, that works in all areas, that has offline modes, that has the ability to capture signatures, that has the ability to see care plans, that has the ability to create custom questions, that has the ability to see ADLs and mark those ADLs off. So these are all parts of compliance, right? In order to capture the 6 things you're supposed to catch per electronic visit verification rules from the 21st Century Cures Act. So it's really important that the software starts at the electronic visit verification on the mobile app. CareTime is key at providing all those. It's something that we are very, very proud of in our mobile app. We know that if an agency uses our mobile app, which is key, getting your caregivers to use it, we know that they've probably gotten past the first 50% difficulties of staying compliant, because the app is going to help you stay there, and it's going to deliver that information in a format that allows you to then take it from there to the next step. And what's the next step in compliance? Well, this is presuming that we collected all the paperwork, we signed all the agreements, we did all the paperwork stuff, right? And we have that in the software. But what really matters at this point is now that you've collected the information, you've approved the shift, and a case manager, if you need one in your state and your program, approves that shift, we got to get paid, right? Well, there's a very specific way to get paid for every single payer in every single state. I did a study the other day, Lucas, that said there were 600 different payers and payer program mixes among just the 37 states that I'm in. Not to mention if I add the rest of them. That means that CareTime has to be able to bill and capture electronic visit verification in 600 different ways to 600 different places, right? Some of them are very similar. It might be off by a field or two. Some of them are radically different depending on the state. Indiana versus New York is an excellent example, right? Georgia versus Florida, huge example, right? Different aggregators, different things, different programs. It's amazing how many differences there are. So when you talk to your program provider or to your software provider, you want to ask them that question: can you do all this? Right? In CareTime, that's what we've built. Almost a clearinghouse. It's almost an internal clearinghouse inside our software to allow you to do the billing anywhere you need to. But doing it anywhere you need to isn't enough. You also need to be able to do it quickly, efficiently, and accurately. And why is that? Well, if you think about it, there's some states out there today that the reimbursement rate for Medicaid is $23, $24, $25. Some are less. And we're paying caregivers today $15, $16, $17 an hour. Rightfully so. They deserve the pay. But government reimbursements haven't caught up with the market forces on pay for caregivers. And so the margin, defined as gross margin between what you pay the caregiver and what you collect, is shrinking. So if I'm an agency, every second, minute, hour that I spend doing a new task is costing me what? Money. I'm paying someone to do it. Unless I'm an agency owner, operator, administrator, and I'm wearing all the hats, it may not cost me money, but it's costing me time.
Yeah.
And time is money, right? So I'm going to run out of time, and if I don't have any time, then I'm going to have to hire somebody, and now I'm spending money. So it's extremely important that you be efficient, and that's one of the things that we take into consideration at CareTime. And even taking CareTime out of it, because I really want to speak to anyone who's on any platform, and whether you come and give us an opportunity to work with you or you stay with your existing vendor, you should always be thinking about efficiency. How much time does it take to do my billing? How much does it time to take to review my shifts? How many manual errors and corrections do I need to make? And does my software make that easy for me?
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop here because I think I kind of went on there for a minute, but I'm going to go for the next one.
No, I'm glad that you said that. I think when you were talking, what I was thinking of was like having how important it is to have trusted partners in this space. If you're an agency, like being able to partner with CareTime, and that's actually where our services complement each other, is that if somebody's interested in getting enrolled as a Medicaid provider, we can help on the front end, because the enrollment part, sometimes the Medicaid doesn't make it easy. They have some hoops that you have to jump through. So we can help on that piece of it, and then hand off to you as a trusted partner to be able to do the actual in-service when they're Medicaid approved, and working with clients to do that. And having those trusted partners, just kind of when we talked about that I don't know, the scare factor kind of brings that I'm too scared to get into it because I don't know exactly how to do it. And then having trusted partners and bringing that threshold down so it can be a relatively pain-free. I don't want to say totally pain-free, but relatively pain-free process so that you can successfully add on an additional payer source like Medicaid.
Yeah, I loved learning this about you guys when we met. I mean, it was one of the things that it really caught my attention, was the kind of business that you're providing and the way that you're doing it and your approach to it, because too many agencies go into this space and they don't really understand credentialing. But even further than that, they don't understand that as they're going through that credentialing process that you're quite competently doing, because I've heard fantastic things about your company, is connecting that to the software that they use, and then connecting it to their overall business operations. And so there's a landscape where, and not everybody has the money to do it when they're starting a small Medicaid agency, but it is important to get there. I tell ever since I met your company, I've been telling everyone that we work with, we have a fantastic credentialer and we want to recommend you to these guys. And this is a space where a few people can figure it out on their own, and they do very well doing so. But the vast majority do not, and they really need to bring in competent partners that are trustworthy and reliable to help them get through these humps, because a mistake in this business, in credentialing or in operations can cost you your business.
Yeah. And certainly a significant amount of time. If it just working through it on your own and trying to figure out, and then clients that you work with, dollars too. Like if they're not with a trusted partner like CareTime, uh, the time to bill a claim, for it to get rejected, for all this money to be sitting on the sideline while they're trying to operate their business and pay their caregivers. I mean, that's critical to the success of an agency.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The last, the question I always like to ask is last question is, as we zoom out and look at, home care space over the next two to 3 years, what are you seeing for home care operators, for this home care space, in terms of the potential for increased business, and what does it look like? What's the future look like that you see?
That's a great question. Obviously, the market is getting bigger every day, right? The number of people that are of age to need help is growing exponentially. We've all been hearing the baby boom numbers for years, and it's still happening. Thousands, tens of thousands daily getting in. At this point, the boomers are in their 80s, their mid 80s, and their 90s, and so that help is really, my mother is a boomer; she's 80, and so there's a lot of people that are entering into that space. I'm blessed; my mother's 80 and very healthy and works out every day and that kind of thing, but it's not always the case. So that market's not getting any smaller. The price of care is getting higher. There used to be, if you remember, 10 years ago, the average rate for private duty home care, for personal care, for self-pay was less than $25, right? It was $20 to $25, and $25 was in the high end. The price of personal care today, private self-pay, everywhere I speak or talk to, is $30 to $35. It's a significant impact on the pocketbook, and as somebody who was self-pay, partially Medicaid, with my own grandmother, then those things start adding up. So what do we have is a rising market. It's a huge market out there, and it's not getting any smaller. Reimbursement rates at the government level are lower. Private pay rates are higher. More people have need. It feels, and I'm not a guru of the future, right? But I feel that there's some tension building, Lucas, that I think will have to be resolved somehow. And I don't know what the answer to that is. I suspect if I did have the answer, I'd be running for office, but I don't. I don't have the answer for how we're going to resolve the tension between the need for the care and the cost of the care on a market that's growing exponentially. And it's not getting any easier to run an agency. There's always more regulations. There's always more paperwork. There's always changes in how things are done. The move from straight Medicaid in the state to the MCO model, that's been a big thing. Well, that's been also a big tension thing. And the MCOs are doing the best they can to maintain and cut costs. And that's balancing against the need for care. You have states that are now doing dual certification. They're requiring people to do Medicaid waiver now must have a home health license. I won't put those states out there by name because I have to go to the state associations, but there are states out there that are making it truly difficult for Medicaid agencies to do just Medicaid. They're making it almost impossible, and they have to go out and get home health licenses. And look, that they mean well, right? What they're trying to do is increase the level and professionalism of the care that's being provided and maybe control fraud a little bit. But in my opinion, every time you add a layer of regulation or difficulty, there's a percentage of people that are no longer going to receive care because somebody's going to drop out of the market or there won't be enough agencies. And the only people I care about are the people that are receiving the care and the agency owners that are providing them. Those are the people that are the most important. And of course, my own employees and business partners and the people I work with. But in the end, we can't lose sight of the fact that there's people out there who cannot care for themselves. So to answer your question, I think there will always be a solid need for it. It's never going to go away. As the market forces push in one direction or the other, solutions will come up, right? Whether or not the states figure out new ways to adjust the care. For example, the big push to consumer-directed services, structured family care, CDPAP, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
that's a great solution, right? We kind of eliminate the need for caregivers. These are family members, friends, parents, children, daughters, whatever it is, and are willing to accept less pay to do a job that they're already doing, right? So there's some money there. So we might see more of that, and I suspect that that's the direction you're going to go. It's a big growing program in Indiana, big growing program in Georgia. I see more of it in Florida. New York used to be a growing environment, but there's been some legislative changes there that have been slightly controversial, but there has been some drop in the provided coverage to people in New York State. So there's some things out there that are changing, so I suspect that'll continue to happen. But bottom line, this business is always going to be there. People are always going to need care, and somebody's always going to need to provide it. And the people that learn to do it well are going to be very successful in this business.
Nice. That's a perfect way to wrap up. Thank you for providing your expertise, Julio. We really appreciate it for our audience, and somebody that's been around this industry for a long time. Just being able to share your wisdom is very helpful. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast today.
Lucas, the pleasure was all mine. I hope we can do more together. I really enjoy working with your company, and I know you guys are doing good work out there every day. So thank you for bringing us on board. And I do have to say, if you're interested in talking to somebody who's got software to help your agency save money, retain your caregivers, and get paid faster, please reach out to CareTime.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Have a good day.
If you found this conversation valuable, please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Also, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Business of Senior Care. We'll see you next time on Home Care. Doors open.